All right. Approximately a third of the page down on page Memala from the top. The line begins with the word dafka. That's where we're going to be starting.
No.
Yeah, daf Memala.
I want to start.
What's it called?
What? I'll have a hot. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Just one or cup?
Just one. Thank you. Okay, we're all ready. So we've, as I said, they finally went over to speak about Hashpo Atzmis. We discussed at great length the principle of Hashpo HaKoich, Hashpo of Ha'ora. And we touched upon different types in that and different depths. In all instances, as long as it's a ha'ora, there is the funnel of the rotzin. And what is the funnel? And I hope we understand that, because these are fine things, and we spent a lot of time on it. I hope.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
At some point before you get moving into this year, I have a question I'd like to ask. But I don't want to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just want to let you know this.
All right, let me just introduce.
Yeah.
The reason I'm standing on a dime over here is that I'd like it, we should have a sense. What is the whole principle of Hashpah? We have Hashpah as Ha'ora, we have Rotzen, and we have Hashpah, the Etzim. And what's the difficulty that what's the hitch that I'm trying to, so to speak, straighten out? It is that we have this misconception due to the worldly view that if something is occurring, something is happening, it is due to some kind of a chisoron, some kind of a lack. What is this for? Oh, what are you going to gain out of it? This is motivation. This is in the world. That's the only way that we can justify any kind of activity. Starting again, this is really going all the way out, but I'd like you to know that this is the principle. Starting all the way from the Creator himself, the Eibusher created the world. What is he going to gain out of it? This truth that the Eibusher has put in the creation, this truth is carried along in the entire creation. And everything in the creation senses a certain degree of this truth. clearly, to various degrees. But even in the fact that there is procreation in the rest, in the general world, in general creation, even though we said that this is only what's called kayomin b'min, this is like the species, this is the koya bli gvul that's in the earth. But this koya bli gvul that's in the earth, this is has a godly principle. Why is the earth pushing, maintaining this activity? Like we explained the other day, several times over the last couple of weeks, the phenomenon of the tree growing and the tree being held up by the earth. It's due to there's a godly truth that's taking place over there. Taking this into the human being, into the Yid, who truly has a godly essence. And in that we identify two distinct levels. Both have a truth element, but they're quite different in the level. There is the ha'ora and the hashpah of the ha'ora and the hashpah of the etzem. Hashpah, meaning that we're talking at that level, we're talking about the truth element. Hashpah in general is not a hashpah due to any kind of chisod. It's only a positive thing. It's not to eliminate the negativity. To take it from a very fundamental, simple fundamental level. We teach our children to behave in a certain way. Teach various things to our children.
Baruch.
Yeah.
Baruch, can you put your phone on mute until you're ready to ask your question?
Sure.
I started talking about. We are teaching our children fundamental things. It would seem at first, because you're teaching them very fundamental things, that they should act in such a way so you shouldn't hurt themselves, you shouldn't hurt others, and so forth. Like you mentioned the other day, what is the ultimate principle behind our raising our children? It is that they should recognize their godly reality. The Rebbe always used to scream, as soon as a child in America has this principle, as soon as a child is born, what is he going to make a living with? The whole chinuch is to avoid the problem of a living. What's life about? That we don't sense that there is a necessity to the mechanech. Our concern is only the negative. This is the world logic. And we have to slowly relate to a completely different principle of chinuch, hashpah. The hashpah is because there is a value in the Ayin itself. And what is an absolute value? Absolute value is clearly their sense of the godly truth. And all hashpah has that at its center. But the hashpah of seichel or hashpah atzmus. When mashpia seichel, it is not so that the Talmud will have a means to earn a livelihood. Rather, it is in order that the Talmud's seichel should develop, and he should relate to the godly truth in life. Relate, to understand, and so forth. That's clear. That's what hashpah is about. And this is the principle behind it, saying the hashpah is berotzon. And we explained it over these weeks, these days. What means berotzon? What is rotzon contribute to this hashpah? The rotzon contribute to hashpah is the following. See, this is a repeat, but I want to repeat it in context and in a straight line. Rotzon means, and this is something which is in itself desirable. It has a value. That's what I want. Like we said all the time. Rotze b'kiyumi, he wants to be what he is. Why? Because he wants to survive. Like we said the other day, the principle behind survival, the theory of survival, is that he is afraid of the mice. That's all it is. He's afraid of death. That's why he wants to survive. Otherwise, what's in survival? He said, no, there is a positive and overwhelming significance in this rotzon. Because this rotzon has a godly truth in it. He's a godly creation, and the rotzon appreciates this godly element in his being. And this is why he wants to maintain it. That's rotzon. The definition of rotzon. There is the essence, and there is the rotzon. Rotzon identifies the significance that's in the essence on the rotzon level, on a function, in an active manner. From this rotzon comes the seichel. Since there is something so valuable, so significant, then you start understanding it and want to know it, and you want to teach it. This is the chat as hashpah ruchnis goes to the rotzon. And along with that, we pointed out, since that rotzon, that it is rotzon, which means that it's not something that flows directly from the essence, but it has to be reinterpreted on a conscious, on a semi-conscious level. Therefore, it is already, it has a definitive presence. It is no longer at the level of the essence and in the infinity element. I know what I want. If I know what I want, it's no longer the essence. Even though that want is actually permeated with the truth of the nefesh. This is hashpah ruchnis. Take this whole phenomenon and put it on an etzem level. Hashpah gufi, hashpah is atzmi, comes from etzem level. Why is he mashpia? Because his essence, he's a true essence. this true essence. Just like initially the Rebbe created him for no particular gain, but because this is Torah HaTev Hativ, as it says in Beis. It's the nature of the good to promote good, to do good, to reveal the good. And this is also in the nefesh. Because the nefesh is an atzmi, has an atzmi, and like, as we pointed out, this is unique in the nefesh ha'odam, nefesh ha'ayim, because the nefesh ha'olekis is infinite, has that quality. In the rest of the world, in the rest of the creation, that is on a different environment, a different level. This is what's called survive. The mean, the eternity of the species rather than the individual. But in Nefesh HaOdam there is the individual eternity. To put this all the way to the so to speak on the end point, yes, we all have, with God's help, the Rebbe blesses us, we have children. What is a child? A child, with God's help, is that is a full-fledged human being, Ayin, who will further recognize the godly presence in the world. And will illuminate the world with that presence. Every Yid, by his very presence, brings godliness into the world. I want to just complete this statement, because not every Yid is a shemah to the mitzvahs, and we have all kinds of different difficulties. Regardless, a Yid is a pillar of light, a godly pillar of light. As manifest in this one instance as an example, which is only one example. But the Gemara says that if a person gives a penny into tzedakah, and he has a condition, he says he's giving it because he wants a certain thing, he wants that his child should be well, he wants it for certain personal benefit. So here the Gemara refers to him as a tzaddik gomer. And Toshvos over there asks the question, how can you call him a tzaddik gomer? He's doing it for alternate, it's not altruistic. And then Toshvos explains, deep down he's doing it altruistically. And the proof is in the fact that if, God forbid, he doesn't get his wish, he will never ask the penny back. He will not regret having given his zakah. It means he appreciates his zakah for its own right, for its own sake. Just to complete this section. This is the principle of Hashpah Atzmus, and Hashpah Atzmus. Because he is an Etzem Eliki, he's an Etzem Eliki, he's Mashpia. But there in Hashpah is the creative element, to create another Atzma. V'doina. And clearly, this is the point that I was making here. That in Hashpah Ruchnis, This is also an introduction to the principle of the Rebbe. For Ruchni is but it flows through the Rotzen is an oyer, is a ha'ora, and is a finite ha'ora, and therefore there's an end, how far it can go. The Hashpah Gufnis, Hashpah for Etzem, it's literally a true godly presence that is meaning Nishpa, and that knows no bounds. He creates a whole entity. A human being creates another entity. He becomes like the creator himself. Phenomenal thing. And what we have to understand, what the Rebbe is explaining, this is inherent in the nefesh. It doesn't happen inadvertently. This is inherent in the nefesh. This koyah to create. Because he is a true entity, a true godly presence. And thus, what is nimshach there, not a ha'or of the nefesh, but the essence, the koyach, as it is within the nefesh itself, the etzem of the nefesh. We are on the line that starts with Dafka. Baruch, your turn.
Hang on 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is out of place now. It really goes back to the question Yehuda asked this morning. And although you spoke a good deal on the topic, I don't know if I got a clear answer to Yehuda's question. I don't know if Yehuda's there. He could tell me whether he thinks he got a clear answer. But as I understood his question, it was coming out of this that Rotzain, whatever comes from Rotzain, we said, is Metzumtzum, right? It becomes a Ha'ara. There's a Tzimtzum. And this is because there's a Rotzain Lashpiyah. And in order for there to be a hashpah, there has to be a tzimtzum. You can't give the whole thing. It's not going to be taken. There's no whatever. So the rutzim has to be mitzamtzim, this means then it comes into a ha'ara, if I understand that process correctly. Mash'en came with the etzim is nimshach in haylada. There is no tzimtzum. It's mamash, it's a transmission of etzim. So my question, I thought his question was, what impels this what impels this to happen? What impels Etzim to do this? To create another being b'daimah. Because with Rutzim, we can understand what impels the Rutzim. There's a desire to be mashpia, whether it's or yosher or chayzer. Anyway, it has to happen. And in order for that to happen, there has to be a tzimtzum, and this comes then in the form of this ha'ara. Where's the impetus for hamshach of etzim in Haylada?
And to answer this question,
did we answer it this morning, or may I just?
We answered this morning, but the whole introduction was so that we understand that the answer to this question.
Okay, well, so. I was too preoccupied with the question. I didn't know.
Okay, that was the whole point. Why did the Rebbe create the world? What impelled the Rebbe to create the world?
Right, it's a similar question.
What's the answer?
Nothing.
Nothing. So therefore, what's behind the creation? The godly truth, the infinity of the truth itself, brought it out to reveal the whole truth that is contained therein. And clearly, that has no bounds.
And this is the same thing in every individual situation of Haylada?
That's right. Because in this nefesh, there is a godly spark, and a godly profound truth. And therefore, therefore, the Inyan, what impels, the word impels, if impels means what forces it is not a correct term. Nothing has to force it. It is the truth of it, its own truth that is translated in Heil order.
And it can only be translated, it is only translated, this truth, in creating another entity, b'daimale. Nothing else will actually reveal this truth.
Right. That's what we said. Rotzain has already a definition what you're giving. In this, there is no definition of giving. It comes directly from the truth of the nefesh itself.
So that no nefesh can really ever, in a generation, kaviyachol, reveal itself, express itself.
It does through giving birth.
I'm saying, but that's how it does it.
Yeah.
This is why it continues and continues and continues, generation after generation.
You mean the nefesh cannot be contained in rotzin or in seichel? If that's what you mean, yes, the nefesh cannot be contained in rotzin or seichel.
I know. I'm saying literally. It's not enough. A life, a single life, a life as lived in this world is not enough to reveal the truth of the nefesh.
Right.
So the nefesh is really the same thing, opening up again and again and again and again.
Baruch, are you online?
I'm both. I'm online, I'm on the phone.
Okay. This is the extent to which we can discuss this.
Okay?
The whole principle of etzem is totally beyond seichel, beyond our understanding. And the whole understanding I'm trying to point out is to contrast that with that which is not etzem. There's no way to definitively identify etzem. Why does an nefesh want it? It's beyond, the whole question is beyond it. If we know what we're talking, just like why the Rebbe should create the world, if we understand what we mean by the Rebbe, we will have that question. Let's continue. All right, I said on the line that begins with the word dafka, me'akoyecho atzmi hakol benefesh. Let's translate that to the extent we can. They have said that that's why the shoyresh hashpor, the shoyresh of this hashpor is not from the rotzen, because the rotzen has a sense of what you're trying to be mashpia. The oil, the ha'or. The shoyresh of this shefer is. I'm sorry, I went back to the end of the previous line.
But it's good.
Huh?
It's good you did, the locking. So now you did the locking.
The principle of the root of this hashpor, who davka me'akeyecho atzmi. It is, davka means exclusively, and can only be from the koyecho atzmi hakol benefesh. The koyecho atzmi, again, atzmi is a perplexing term. Hakol benefesh, that is included in the nefesh. If we discuss kol benefesh, we'll have a little bit of a point regarding the koyecho atzmi. The word kol benefesh means it's included in the nefesh. Clearly does not mean that nefesh is like some kind of a receptacle, some kind of a vessel that has koyches in it. Why does the nefesh has a koyach? Because the nefesh inherently has that koyach. This is what nefesh is. As we explained way back when, and we repeated it many times since, Etzem has everything. Not that Etzem is devoid of everything. He has everything despite the fact that he doesn't need anything. Because that's what an Etzem is. Etzem means that it exists and it is present because of its own truth. Not because it serves any purpose. This is where I don't want to confuse them, but this is like for isolating the term etzem. We say that a human being, a yid, has an atzmius presence in the world. His presence in the world is not due to some kind of a service that he renders. But the minute the yid is born, he already substantiates the presence of the world, gives the world a value. That's with an essence. As we mentioned many times, this is why we named a baby. When did we name a baby? Not by bar mitzvah or by chasana, at birth. Because at birth he already contributes his full presence to the world. Okay, let's continue. This was that it is koyachu atzmi hakol b'nefesh. It is kol in the nefesh because of the truth of the nefesh, and this is called koyachu atzmi, not a koyach that's developed, but the essential, a koyach that is there because it's a truth and part of the truth of the nefesh. The best I can say. And as we also know, the proof, so to speak, that which demonstrates, that which points us up, that the blind person can gives birth to a whole person. And that is due to the fact that the giroyin, the lack that is by him in his blindness, is only in the revealed and the functioning koyches. But in the essential atzmi, the koyches that are there part and parcel of his very essence, that is called him yetzma nefesh, then there is no giroyin, nothing lacking or any blemish at all. The Alkain made it show, and this is why he gives birth to a complete person without any blemishes. And this Ayin, that in an etzma nefesh there is not giroyin, speaking from the kirches atzmi, there is not any chisoron. We started discussing it this morning, and I want to kind of conclude that, because every koyach, every functioning koyach that we have, no matter how trivial or how supreme, is a reflection of what the nefesh is. As we said many times this morning, if we are able to walk, we have feet, we're able to walk from point A to point B. It is not to do to the fact that we have feet, that we have the concept of walking, of moving from this point A to point B. If not for the feet, point B, we would be like trees stuck in one place. We would not even conceptualize that there's more than one place. We can walk, we can get there. Then our whole orientation would be just in the place where we are. That is not what the nefesh order means. Feet are only manifestation, is only manifesting what the nefesh is. The nefesh inherently perceives the entire world as its platform. Whether it is through feet that it is going to gain access, or through voice, or through any other means. Therefore, these koiches are all manifestations of what the Etzem HaNefesh is. And at that level, there is no Chesron and Giroin. It cannot be any Chesron. The Nefesh is always perfect and complete. And this is why he can give birth to a whole child. With all the koiches. I know why I got myself into trouble. I want to point out the significance of this statement. Say now, this is only Chitkoiches Chitzoni. Now, clearly it's Koiches Chitzoni. But we say that actually the blemish, he can't function. He's got a blemish in his body. The eyes are not, the physical eye don't function. Physical ears don't function. It doesn't have to be the nefesh altogether. So what is the significance of this statement that it's at atzmis or koiches it's whole? The whole thing is a very superficial blemish. So we explained many times a phenomenon that a human being who is lacking a certain quality, let's say is lacking sight, if he does not see, he is lacking the impression of what sight gives to a person. Sight gives a person a sense of the reality of the world. Now the world is not just when you touch it, but there is a general reality to it. This is what sight provides. So if he lacks this sight, he really lacks in his nefesh, in his orientation, that sense that the world is for real. And this is why he doesn't even have a Yetzer Hara in the full sense of the word. The Yetzer Hara is also not a dummy. He wants something real. If it's not real, he's not enticed by it. So, from this perspective, based on this principle, he literally, this koyach horiyah, and the effect of the koyach horiyah is not in his orientation. It isn't that he just can perform something. He's lacking a certain orientation. So how can he have in mind he wants a child who would know the truth of the world as sight provides? He doesn't even know what that is. Therefore, this statement is very significant. That nevertheless, even though he doesn't know the whole concept, in essence, in the nefesh, he still has it. And this is why it becomes nishpa in the koach zo'atz. Okay, enough said.
This is why it becomes nishma in the koach zo'atz. So everything that you said before is before the koach zo'atz.
Say again?
You said this is what becomes nishma in the koach zo'atz.
Yeah.
I thought you were speaking about the koach zo'atz.
Yeah, I was. No. This is why it's significant that when we say that in Koach Zo'atzmim he is still whole, it would seem like a superfluous statement, because this thing that he has a certain blemish in his body should not have any effect. I mean, it's obvious.
Did not be addressed.
Superfluous statement. So we said, no, it is a significant statement. Huh?
You use the words nishpa,
Mhm.
before,
The word nishpa comes from the word hashpa.
looked over, overseen,
No, nishpa means provided.
provided. Oh, like divine
Shefa. Huh?
providence. Providence.
No, provided, given. Okay. Alright, continue now. Hare, thus we see the Yikar Keach HaHiloda, that the principal koyach of Hiloda, Hu mehakoyach ha'atzmi dafka. It is from the koyach ha'atzmi. What is this repetition? What is the Rebbe? And say Ikar. Ikar means the main, the core, the heart of it. And the principle of the Rebbe is emphasizing, but what Ikar seems to be saying that there are certain aspects that are not from the Koyach HaAtzmi, but the Ikar is from Koyach HaAtzmi.
Ikar Koyach HaLada, the Ikar part of the Koyach HaLada, or the Ikar which is Koyach HaLada?
No, the Ikar part in the Koyach HaLada. Ikar, Koyach HaLada, the Ikar of the Koyach HaLada is it comes from the Koyach HaAtzmi. Because Koyach HaLada clearly has also functioning elements that bring it out. But the principle that really enables it is from the Koyach HaAtzmi. Once I've mentioned this question, there's much that can be said on this, this is not the proper form, but just to explain that everything that has to do with Koyach HaYilod, the friendship and everything else has to do with the overall effect of the Hilod. It is not Koyach HaAtzmi and it makes no difference under what the circumstances are and so forth. It does make a difference. But the Ikar Koyach HaYilod is from Koyach HaAtzmi. And the manner in which this Koyach HaYilod comes forth is Shenimshach Mehus Ve'atzmus HaKoyach Mamos. It is that the Mahus Atzmus HaKoyach, not a Ha'ora of the Koyach, but the very Mahus of the Koyach. This is what comes forth. In other words, if you can put it in our terminology, it is not a ha'ora of his ability to give birth. It is the ability to give birth itself that comes out. That comes in this function. Yes, sir.
So I asked this morning, so we speak in terms of the etzem hakoyach being nimshach in the ayilot. Etzem hakoyach. But the child doesn't. The etzem hakoyach, I have it because I'm an etzem, and therefore I have koyches atzmiim. Hayloda is not I give the koyches atzmiim, but I give my etzem. Ubemela he has koyches atzmiim.
You give your etzem via koyches atzmiim. Because with God's help, you remain to live for not till 120 after you give birth. So it's an interesting thing. It says, "Pru urvu milos oros, pru urvu, be fruitful and multiply." So Rashi says, the bracha, be fruitful, would allow the giving birth to one more child. Multiply. This is what allows to give birth multiple children. So giving birth does not exhaust the etzem, because it comes from the koyach ha'atzmi, and there's really no limit. In the real sense, there's no limit except old age or whatever. But essentially, the potential for giving birth is no limit. Who, okay, we're going into the parentheses briefly because our time is limited. Who gam bekoyach hamaskil, and the same is also true. Bekoyach hamaskil, bekoyach haseichel. We finished. We pointed out that where do we see that the halod that comes from koyach ha'atzmi, from the fact that a sightless person can give birth to a healthy child, not lacking the koyach of sight, because it comes from the koyach ha'atzmi. So the Rebbe says that this inyan, that the koyach, that in halod, all the koyach comes not from the father's koyach, not from the father's koyach of sight. It comes from the koyach atzmi in the nefesh. The same is true to all the koyachs. That koyach hamaskil and koyach haseichel shenimshach bekoyach ha'helod, that is nimshach, that comes through in the koyach ha'helod, hu shenimshach etzem hamahus. The koyach hamaskil, also what is nimshach in birth, in giving birth, not the koyach hamaskil of the father, but the etzem hakoyach, the way it is in the etzem hanefesh. In other words, the son is not limited to be able to understand the extent to which his father was able to understand. Absolutely not. He just asked my aunt. I'm sorry.
Whereas the Talmud,
The Talmud, this is not a limiting element at all. Just like the father, sightless father, that doesn't limit the sighting ability of the son. The koyach hamasculine and koyach haseichel of the father is not limiting what the cycle, what the son is able to reach, because it comes from the etzem koyach haseichel in the nefesh. שנמשך עצם המהות שלהם. וזהו עיקר ההפרש. On the bottom there's a comment that they think, and it makes sense, that after Sholahem we have the close parentheses. This was an insert that this inyan pertains to all the koiches, including Koyach HaSeichel. And that's the end of the parenthesis. V'zehu iken ha'hefresh. Ben hashpoas ha'seichel, hashpoas ha'tipo. And this is the principal difference between what takes place in hashpoas ha'seichel. But the Rav is Mashiach seichel to the Talmud. Versus the hashpoas ha'tipo, where that also carries the koiches seichel and everything. The hashpoas ha'seichel, in the difference is that the hashpoas ha'seichel ikiram shochosoi hu rak mibchinas hispashtus v'gilui b'nefesh. You cannot be mashpia seichel that you don't understand. So therefore, the ikiram hashpoas ha'seichel is from the seichel that is begilui, that you are perfectly aware of. And it's begilui oil b'nefesh. Gilui oil b'nefesh means that he doesn't merely know the proof and the substantiation of the seichel. That is not enough for hashpoah. Hashpoah means that he actually recognizes the truth of the seichel, the oyer. The seichel shines. And what is shine coming from? What is the shine? Shine means a light comes from an etzem. In other words, he senses the seichel from a perspective, this is true, this is the true seichel. That's when it shines. This isn't just a compelling argument that he knows. It is the oyer of seichel that he knows, and this is why he's able to be mashpia. To give us an illustration, because the word oyer is very elusive. You show a child that he should eat in a certain way, right? You should eat bite-sized, you should eat it in a neat way, not get dirty, and so forth. The hashpoas haseichel in this is not merely that he should not get dirty, and that he should be able to chew. This is not oyer. This is the compelling element in this. The oyer element is that this is as we said all the time, this is a human, a truth. This is an element of self-respect. This is the source of the whole seichel. And the mashpia has this oil, and this is where the hashpoah is coming from. His hashpoah is not coming from a fire. I can't stand when you make the floor dirty and I have to clean it. That is not the hashpoah.
That's from the Koyach HaMaskil of the Rav?
This is the Koyach HaMaskil. This is the Hamshoch of the Koyach HaMaskil.
Talmud is limited to basically to bring out seichel according to the Koyach HaMaskil of the Rav, basically.
Essentially, this is what the Rav affects in the Talmud. He tries to touch his Koyach HaSeichel at the deepest level, and then the Talmud is building on this. But essentially, and we said before, that the Rav has an imprint, he influences the thought process of the Talmud. Conceivably, the Talmud could be definitely, can have a stronger mind and he can go beyond that. But generally speaking, this is what the Rav is mashpia. If it goes beyond, that's not part of mashpia. A Rav who teaches AyinBase to a child, you would think it's a very simple technical thing. He shows him the AyinBase. Not so. He's teaching him the wholeness of the letters, the love for the letters, the feel for the letters. So the Talmud stands there and says, Kometz Alefo, Kometz Beis Bo, Kometz Gimel Do. You have children standing and davening over there next to their tatis, and they say, Kometz Alefo, the whole davening, and they don't get tired. This is the hashpah. With this hashpah, the child can outgrow his malamed. The malamed teaches AyinBase not necessarily, is not a lam necessary. He's outgrown. So in other words, he can take that and build and learn Gemara, and so forth. Learn AyinBase. But the hashpah was a real hashpah. And in terms, this may be even said, in terms of his feel and the love for the AyinBase, that remains with him from his malamed. Effectively. This is your question that you preempted. And that is a pshat, what we said before, the sheirish hamshachosoi hu, that the sheirish of the hamshacha has seichel, that the Rav is mashpia to the Talmud, mikei hamaskin. Ish and mikei hamaskin. Shehu hamshacha levad kanal. The Koyach HaMaskil is only a hamshocha from the Etzem HaKoyach, not the Etzem HaKoyach. And this is where we're going to interrupt till tomorrow morning, Mr. Hashem, and we're going to daven Mayim.
That bracha we said burn the fashas.
Yeah.
We said something about like lacking in that. We do it. We do have lacks.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
Oh, burn the fashas. We say burn the fashas.
Create a lack.
He created them with their lacks. We do lack.
No. Chesronon means no. They're saying that we support. They support. That the Chesronon this means, and all that they need.
Chaser sounds like
all their needs.
All their needs.
But their needs are not lacking.
Not their shortcomings. Their needs.
Not need anything.
All right.
It's called a need and a lack is not the same thing.
They need life. We need life.